started. And welcome again to Building with Trimble. Again, we're talking about Trimble Prolog Mobile using checklists to streamline inspections. Before we get started, as always, we'll go through the quick webinar logistics. Because we do have such a large audience assembled, all attendees are in listen-only mode. Our session is being recorded, and you'll receive a link to the archived webinar that you'll be able to share with your colleagues. And on every Building with Trimble webinar, we do take questions at the end. To ask a question, simply locate the questions pane on the GoToWebinar control console and type it in. We'll take those questions at the end of the presentation, but if we don't get to your question, don't worry. We'll follow up with you separately after the webinar. And let's get to our introductions. I'm Christy Hunt. I'm part of the product team, and I'm joining you from Trimble's Folsom, California office. Also with us today is Adam Hune, sales manager from Building Point. Adam spent over a decade in financing and consulting on software for many large companies prior to joining the AEC market. He has joined the Building Point team to support Trimble software for both the Gulf Coast and the Midwest. When he's not supporting that AEC market, he enjoys spending time with his family, which includes his 2 daughters, and playing basketball and golf. And also, we're very excited to have Brian Love from Doster Construction with us today. Brian graduated from Middle Tennessee State University with a BS in Industrial Technology and has been in multifamily construction since 1998. He joined Doster in 2005 as project manager. And now as Doster's quality control and scheduling manager for over 8 years, Brian develops and oversees all project schedules in the multifamily division. In this role, he oversees the QC standards and trains and works with the field personnel to maintain those QC standards. He also oversees the closeout and warranty phase for many of these projects. And of course, on every Building with Trimble, we always have our goals, and today we have 3. You're going to learn more about Doster Construction's use of Prolog to streamline their inspection process. You're going to see some tips on how Doster made that change from paper to Prolog, some of the steps they took and how they validated that with some of their field resources. And finally, you're going to see how embracing technology helps Doster with that continuous process improvement. So they lean on technology and use the tools at their disposal and help build a better solution to improve their processes. Today, we're actually joined with Adam Hune. I want to introduce Building Point. Building Point is Trimble's global network of distribution partners specializing in supporting customers with the adoption of Trimble Buildings portfolios. Building Point distribution partners are a part of the first fully dedicated global distribution network, offering Trimble's comprehensive portfolio of building construction technology solutions across the design, build, operate lifecycle. Trimble is establishing Building Point distribution partners in the Americas, Europe, and Asia Pacific regions. And so with that, let's get things started. I'm going to hand over to Adam Hune, sales manager from Building Point representing Gulf Coast. And then once Adam's done, we'll hear from Brian Love. Over to you, Adam.
Thank you, Christy, and thank you to everybody for having me on. Extremely excited to be kind of a part of the Building Point network and being able to kind of get our name out there to the market now as Trimble started to build this over the world. As Christy said, you know, I handle 2 different Building Points. We have the Midwest locations, which are on the map there, as well as the Gulf Coast. That being said, there are several other Building Points across the country and across Australia's and Asia's. So it is something that you know, you will be contacted or in contact with a different Building Point if it's not one that's you know, from me. Thank you. To give you kind of an idea of, you know, Building Points and really what the idea behind that dedicated partner for Trimble is we're broken into 3 groups. And we have a software division, which I'm a part of. We have a field division, which handles the robots, total stations, and 3D laser scanners. That's been a part of Trimble's business for a number of years. And also a VDC services team. So, you know, from a software perspective, a lot of the integrations and the things that are happening now come from the Prolog side, from estimating with WinEst. Vico is another product, and Monologics for historical cost data and management. And you know, again, kind of blending the 2 on the building life cycle as far as how you get some of this data into those layout machines with robots, total stations out in the field. Our VDC services team has a number of different functions and ways to support our clients. One is to leverage 3D laser scanning, and then kind of mirroring that connection between point clouds and models or drawings and things like that. So we can be an extension of your team if you do have a VDC services team, but may have to ramp up for an additional project. Or if you don't have a team yet in place, we can help with that modeling and coordination of an existing project. Our VDC service team also helps to kind of blend the training and implementation of all of the Trimble products. Next slide. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Doster Construction and talk about Brian here. Doster is a general contractor out of Birmingham who has a strong presence in multifamily, healthcare, educational, and other types of commercial construction. Doster has been a Prolog customer since 1997, and I think as Christy said, Brian's been with Doster for about 10 years now. Brian oversees the QA/QC on their multifamily sector of the house, and I'm pleased to introduce Brian Love from Doster. And just so you guys, we're excited to not only have him discuss a workflow that they've continued to perfect, but also a relationship that I hope to build stronger as the years go on, and also relationships out there that the rest of the building points hope to create with you guys. Thank you.
All right, Christy and Adam, thank you for inviting me to be a part of the program today. Would like to just go ahead and go into the next slide here. Yes, to begin with, I'd like to talk about what we focus on at Doster Construction, because every single project we look at, we have three primary focuses. Those three focuses are quality, schedule, and wise management of the project. So for the agenda for today's webinar is to discuss some of the key challenges that we faced after I was hired on at Doster. So how did we approach those challenges? Discuss the solutions that we chose and how we tested out those solutions before rolling out and making those company-wide changes. To begin with, I was hired at Doster Construction back in June of 2005 as a project manager just for the multifamily division. I soon switched over to my current position back in 2007 as quality control and scheduling manager. So I helped develop and oversee all project schedules and also implement and oversee all the quality control standards for our department. And specifically, I train and work with the office and field personnel to maintain all those quality control standards. One of the first challenges we came across that we wanted to overcome in my new position was to improve the way we managed our quality control and punch procedures. Everything at that time was tracked on paper. It was handwritten. It was usually marked through, highlighted, and copied over several times. It was a dirty and inefficient method. So even typed lists could be bulky and hard to deal with. Even worse, the information that we need to be able to document would be lost at times. So early on, we wanted to be able to improve our procedures and technology. We identified areas that we wanted to improve in our checklist and punch. With one, we wanted to improve the quality and the detail of the information provided. Two, we wanted to improve the process. How can we use the technology to our advantage? And also, we wanted to be able to monitor the progress of the QA/QC process without being on the job site. And three, make the improvements easy to use. We wanted to clean up the clutter of the process. If it is not easy to use, the guys out in the field will just fall back to their old habits and use what is easy to them. We first formed a committee to review our procedures and our checklists. We had some project managers and superintendents to provide their input on ways to improve. We revised our quality control checklist. We removed checklist items that was outdated. We also added items to focus on areas where we wanted to improve. Next, we wanted to start using technology to improve both the process but also make it easier to check and ensure work is done right. We first started using small handheld devices that we quickly outgrew within a year. It was not a very easy system to use, but we learned that the field superintendents were open to technology. We next moved to the next stage of growth when we found a third-party software called Encompass. It worked with Prolog, which was what we already were using here in our home office. We could now push information back and forth to the job within the same software platform. The software also operated on a PC tablet, so the staff could be out in the field, update a checklist, write up some punch, or check emails without ever going back to the job site office. With Encompass, it was a great improvement from what we were using previously with the handheld devices. However, Encompass did have one hiccup. We wanted to be able to push out our quality control checklist into the hands of our guys out in the field within the PC tablet. But with Encompass, there was not a module that was specifically designed for checklists. We looked at the inspections and tests module that they had. At that time, we decided that we could try and adapt this module to use it for our quality control checklist. So we preloaded the checklist items that they could easily answer yes or no if the item was passed, and they could also make some additional notes if needed. Once we had it adapted to a system that we thought we could use, we decided we would test it out on a project to see whether it would work or not. Knowing that we had the software and the hardware in place, we wanted to go ahead and move forward and do this. We were not sure how well it would go, so we rolled out the software and the PC tablets on a project called Virtual at Ross Bridge. This project was local and close to our office. It also had personnel on the job that could quickly adapt to the new software and hardware so we could get better feedback. Before rolling it out on the Ross Bridge, we had to set up everything for the job site specifics. It took us a couple weeks to get the format set up and load all the checklists into the module and test internally. We pushed it out and then trained to the field and project management personnel in a couple of days on site. We had about 5 to 6 people test it out, including myself, for about a month. We tested everything through the normal day procedures and everyday activities. We would update the quality control checklist, and we would issue punch list reports to subs. After testing for about a month, we met with our staff on site to get some feedback. We even asked for some feedback from the subs on the information they received to see if it worked well for them. Most feedback was that it was an improvement from what we were using before. Our superintendents liked being able to update out in the field and have more information readily available to them versus walking back to the job trailer to reference plans and files. They could see where this could save them a lot of time. It did have a learning curve for some who were used to operating to the old methods. We then quickly wanted to roll this out to all of our remaining projects, which were scattered all over the southeast states. This probably took about 2 months to get all the files set up, to get the equipment purchased and set up, and to get the job sites, to get everything to the job sites and to get everyone trained. We could see instant benefits from how we shared our information with the subs. The reports we could produce, the data being documented, and how the project managers could check and monitor the work from the main office. The data was easier to update, and the software was easier to use. So as we always look to stay ahead of the technology curve, we had another great opportunity of improvement when Encompass was brought under the Trimble Prolog corporate umbrella. We looked at how we could improve with using the Prolog mobile software. It had a new module called Checklist, we knew we had to make this an upgrade in our software. For the hardware side of things, we also looked at switching to iPads for all of our field staff. In early 2014, we wanted to take advantage of the new checklist module, so we went through a similar process rolling out the new software and hardware as we did before, by testing out on one job to work out the bugs and then roll out to the remaining projects. With the prior success of using Encompass and Prolog, it gave us the confidence to try the new checklist module after it was introduced. We first tested it out internally because the module format was different from before. We grouped and sorted out checklists to better work within the format of that module. The QC checklist questions were still the same questions that we had, but it was just grouped and sorted slightly different. Another improvement on the setup was it would take about a third of the time from before to set the QC checklist for each project. And that was something that I personally liked, since I was the one having to set up each job, so I knew I was going to save some time. We needed a project to test the new software and hardware on to get feedback to better roll out to the rest of the company. Our test project was Springs at Vermont. This was a project located down in Louisiana. We did not have a local project going on at the time, so we chose this project because it had personnel that could give us good, easy feedback that would be helpful to suggest changes if needed. It took about 2 weeks to switch our QC checklist over to the checklist module format. We again trained the project managers and superintendents on how to use the checklist module and some of the differences of using the iPads. We met on site and got email feedback for this rollout. Everyone liked Prolog Mobile as a whole. Everyone liked the checklist module format better than what we were using in the old inspections and test module. The feedback was very positive. They told us it was easier to use than before. They liked the quick pass-fail features in the checklist module. It was a better process to make sure installed work matches building plans and procedures. It was easier to set up custom reporting. We could centralize field reporting and inspections. The process to close out and hand over the project to the client was also streamlined. So with the positive feedback, we started taking the steps to make the software and hardware upgrades to all of our projects. It didn't matter if the project was a simple garden-style project or if it was a more complicated downtown infield project. We knew we would see great benefits on all the jobs. So it took us about 2 to 3 months to roll out to all the active jobs. The rollout included updating all the project files for the software, purchasing and setting up the equipment, pushing it out to all the jobs, and getting everyone trained. We almost instantly saw improvements with the easier format. The checklists were being updated on a more regular basis. Along with the use of the iPad, pictures could be taken instantly and attached to specific areas in the quality control checklist to help document when things were completed to the specifications required. As we continue to look at ways to improve our process and procedures, we have added weekly safety checklists, as well as adding a precast parking deck and elevated concrete decks to our quality control checklist. This is a sample of one of our quality control checklists. We broke down the quality control down into phases: site, foundations, framing, rough-in, etc. In each phase, one page of the quality control would represent a group within that phase. For framing, we had wood framing, metal stud framing, windows, doors, etc. For our rough-in MEP phase, we would have groups of for plumbing, sprinklers, mechanical, electrical, and insulation. Each item checked with a pass upon completion. Items would be marked attention required when items required attention for correction by the subcontractors. There's no doubt that with good quality control process and procedures in place, and with using the Prolog mobile software in conjunction with the iPads and other available new technology, this has helped us to finish projects on time. It has helped to develop projects with excellent quality that owners can't wait to accept. It has helped to better manage projects to make the process easier to deal with. Multifamily construction is not easy. If it was, anybody and everybody would be doing it, but I feel very confident in our capabilities and what we will be able to do in the future.
Excellent. All right, Brian, thank you so much for that. We really enjoyed learning more about your process of rolling out new technology and taking advantage of the solutions that Prolog has provided in the past, so thank you for that. We do have some questions lined up, so I want to get to those right now. Adam, I'll direct this first one to you. We talked a little bit and explained a little bit about who Building Point was. When a customer has a question, who should they be working with? Should they be working with Building Point, or should they be working with us here at Trimble? What's the right angle to go?
Sure. Thanks, Christy. Yeah, I think for the majority of customers out there, this is going to lead to going to a Building Point. As Christy said before, we're in the process of continually, increasing the number of Building Points out there, but that is going to be, that dedicated partner in that way that you can not only facilitate, a sale of a piece of software or hardware, but also, additional training and support.
Great, thank you for that. Brian, a question for you. How many checklists are you now using with Prolog Mobile?
Yes, for quality control, we have about 10 checklists in place, and then we've got the additional safety checklist, which is just a checklist that gets repeated every week on the job site and filled out by the guys.
All right, excellent. Let's see here. Adam, I'll send this one your way. How about, does Prolog Mobile require constant internet access in order to use it or be able to complete tasks or update that pass-fail or the pass need more info that Brian was showing us before?
Sure. So you do not need an internet connection. You can have a connection anytime before you're going into a project or a site or afterwards, and sync the necessary data that you've been completing out in the field, whether that be some of the checklists, whether that be punch list items, RFIs, anything like that. The benefit of that is one, I know we've got a lot of federal clients out there that cannot have an internet connection within so many feet or yards of a building site. But also, even if you're in the middle of a city like Chicago or New York or something like that, where you may not have the best connection through that. So, I think that's a benefit that we give with our Prolog system and our mobile system.
Thank you. Excellent. I'll go back to you again, Brian. You talked a lot about your process and how you tested and you did your rollouts and you went from that piece of paper written checklists and the binders and all of that. Do you have an estimate on how much time this has saved you and the teams out there at Doster?
I don't have a quantifiable number of how much time it has saved us, but I can definitely say that it has saved time. For me personally, it is with what we're currently doing now. I'm able to. I've got these preset files that I've already got made up, and so basically when the project rolls out, I just have to push it into the new project and release it. For the guys out in the field, it has cut down the time from being out on the project to keep going back and forth to the trailer to refer to things. I've got the information right there with them on their iPad. Is saving them time and being able to reference things out in the field with the inspectors, with the fire marshal. It's saved time, and being able to, everything they enter into the iPads out in the field it goes directly into the report, so there's not retyping of information or copying of information. It has streamlined the process, so you pick up time in basically all facets of everything you're trying to monitor out in the field.
Yeah, I can see how it's not always measurable time because you probably weren't tracking, you know, the back and forth to the trailer. That's not exactly measurable time, but it sure does take time away from actually getting the work done.
Right.
Definitely. Excellent. Okay, we'll do one last question. Adam, how can customers get help on training, on checklists, or if they maybe want some help even creating them, maybe some consulting work to have checklists customized for them? How can they get that help?
Yeah, this is kind of a selfish plug. It's almost like I wrote this one. You know, if anybody has questions on this, guys, there's a couple of different pieces. Obviously, you can contact your building point, and they can help set up those services for you and train you how to do these in the future so that it's not a serviceable item every time. There also is like how-to videos and stuff through you know, manuals, you know, on Trimble's website that's part of your support, you know, and something that people pay for when you acquire Prolog or if you have Prolog. So, you know, either way, obviously it's a matter of how much time, you know, somebody has, and obviously everybody's using, you know, they're working on multiple projects, they're doing multiple different things as far as job responsibilities. So, you know, a lot of times going to an external source like a building point can help, you know, make that transition a little bit quicker.
Right, and yeah, I think that's the nice thing that Brian pointed out in his presentation is they were able to take this on themselves, learn about it, and roll it out on a project before rolling it out to a bigger team. But perhaps if you don't have the team to build that, or if you're spread thin already, it's great to be able to leverage some of our training videos, our help files on support link, or reach out to either Trimble or Building Point to find a services person who can help you get those